Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote. Hello, welcome to Across the Park podcast. Myself here, Mills, with Judgy, Gary Judge, and we're just going to talk about the summer so far, what we've made of where we are as we creep into the USA pre-season tour. There's a lot to do in some people's eyes. There's maybe not so much to do in some people, so we're going to get into that. But we hope you're enjoying your summer. We had a couple of nice heat waves. Hopefully, one more still to come. Judgy, me and you speak every day, but for the listeners' point of view, how are you? How's your summer going so far?
Yeah, all good, mate. Really looking forward to the real football coming back. I know if you're a Chelsea supporter, you won't necessarily agree with that comment, but yeah, it's strange, isn't it? I mean, I think when the season first finishes, you do feel like you need that break. But then yeah, it's definitely starting to get itchy now. Went to Accrington on Tuesday. Obviously, you went to Blackburn as well yesterday, which we'll come on to. But I do feel like I'm starting to miss it now.
It's weird, isn't it? Because there's been a lot of football, but it's not Everton. And watching football is different to watching Everton, isn't it?
Definitely, without doubt, yeah. And it's I mean, we're obviously going to come on to the transfer window and everything like that. I think sometimes that fills the gap a little bit when you're signing players, and you're looking into that and you're getting excited. But the lack of transfer activities probably made this summer a little bit a bit more difficult to stomach so far. Particularly when those lot across the way are buying everyone.
Buying everyone on free transfers, NetSpends FC, as our group knows. But that's going to be the crux of our show, Judgy. We're going to talk about the incomings, what we need next. We do hope you're all having a fantastic summer. We do appreciate the views, the comments, the interactions on the Michael Ball and the Alan Meyer shows. Thank you so much for the kind comments. Me and Judgy had some great people come over to us at Accrington and Blackburn and saying hello and stuff. So we appreciate that. We are just tagging in now. Our next real show will be when the season starts, unless we do something that requires a podcast. But we hope you're having a nice break like us. But we're going to catch up. The intro there with Goodison Park on it, and the background has got Goodison Park on it. Goodison Park remains and will be a massive part of the football club, but we are going to look at doing an intro and a background that includes the Hill Dickinson Stadium, which I don't think, Judgy, I'll ever get used to calling it. I'll always tell you, but driver, I'm going to Bramley Moor, I think. But where we are now, we brought in Charlie Alcaraz on a permanent deal. Tierno Barry on a permanent deal. We retained Seamus Coleman, Michael Keane, and Idrissa Gana Gueye. We're 2 pre-season games in. We're about to go on a tour of America. Are we, in your opinion, at where we should be so far this summer?
No, I think we're desperately short of numbers. I mean, it was no secret the amount of players that were out of contract at the end of last season, the amount of players who were returning to their parent clubs, some of whom in both categories we were quite happy to see the back of. But that said, there was still a lot of players in there that were at Premiership level. Do you know what I mean? They were, a lot of them were seasoned professionals. A lot of them were players that were filling the squads, that were filling the bench on a regular basis, that were covering when other players were injured. And given how long the club knew about those players exiting, I was expecting quite a few early moves. Obviously, you just mentioned Alcaraz and the Tierno Barry one seems to be one that the club were looking at quite closely. But apart from that, there doesn't seem to be a lot of what you would call definitive moves that have been made, or players that have been identified that fit the bill for David Moyes and for the team itself. And that's disappointing. Now we're starting to get into the realms of I wouldn't say desperate quite yet, but as you say, we're going on our tour of America, which once we get back is just followed by the Roma game, and we're into the season. So Moyes always made no secret of it when he was manager. I think most managers would say the same. You want to get your business done early, so you've got a chance to get them in and for them to have a full pre-season. That's not going to happen now. And I'll be honest, I am really disappointed by it, because even in the eventuality that we maybe do make some signings now, it's not going to be easy for those signings to get settled. So yeah, I am disappointed. I guess the argument could be, look, we've still got a strong enough 11, and it's not like we're going to go into the season with a team that's not going to be able to compete. But if the rumours are true that we've still got the best part of £150 million to spend, you would like to think that at least 2 or 3 of those signings are going to be players that come into that first 11.
Definitely.
And I think it'll be, David Moyes' preferred starters. So yeah, I'm disappointed, and I think it's I wouldn't go down the realms of calling it poor, but it's because I think the one thing I would temper it with is not that many clubs at our level have done that much business. So maybe it's just as sometimes the case with 1 or 2 moves that happen, and that kind of triggers everything else to happen. And maybe that's what's going on at the moment. There's a little bit of Russian roulette being played by some of the top clubs, maybe waiting to hold on some of their players, or you're not sure where they're going to move, and maybe one move will then trigger a series of moves. But at the moment, it is concerning.
I want to talk about the names that we're being linked with. But before we do that, the players that are currently in Everton shirts. So we retained Seamus Coleman on a 1-year deal. We retained Michael Keane on a 1-year deal. We retained Idrissa Gana Gueye on what looks to be an initial 1-year deal with the potential for it to be more. Are you okay with those 3 players being part of Everton's squad next season?
Yeah, I mean, certainly Guy and Coleman. I don't think any Evertonian would have any reservations about them being around. I think Coleman, I don't think he's going to be used. He's probably going to be used in a similar vein to what he was towards the end, when he was kind of a little bit of a knock. He's going to be on the bench. He's going to be in and around things. David Moyes and his team have had nothing but praise for the influence that he has on the dressing room. I don't think any manager who's walked through the door at Goodison has anything but praise for Coleman in that sense. So certainly not disappointed to see him around. It does no harm whatsoever. Idrissa Gana Gueye, I think, he was our player of the season in the end. I think it was a bit of travesty had we let him walk out the door, because it would have cost the club, I believe, more than 40 million to replace someone as effective as he is in the for the upcoming season. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's players out there that long term will replace Gana Gueye, but in terms of players who can go in and have that impact in the upcoming season, I think the club, and any club at our level, would struggle to replace him. So I'm delighted with that. Michael Keane, I mean, he seems to have become some kind of cult hero. I mean, I was obviously at Accrington on Tuesday, and
Keno song.
Keno. So I think where the fans, and again, I can't speak for all fans, I think where a majority of fans are with Keane is, I think they know that Moyes accepts and Moyes doesn't believe him to be a starting player. And I think if you look past all of the maybe the disappointment that we haven't replaced him with someone younger, and someone who's going to go and compete for the place, to find a player who can be on the bench and can step in every now and again, and he scored some really important goals. You're still again talking 20-25 million just to get a cover, a centre back, somebody who can cover at centre back. So when you put it that way and you think about it that way, it's not the worst bit of business. Again, for one season, it's one less player to bring in in terms of covering them positions. You only have to see in the first couple of games really that he's even trying to have a good look at O'Brien in that centre back position, so that he can maybe be that first choice replacement. Maybe he plays right back to start with, and he moves inside if Tarkowski or Branthwaite are not available. So he's definitely looking for more versatility in that back four, and maybe Keane ends up being that fourth choice centre back behind O'Brien. So yeah, in reflection, I don't think they were the worst retains, if you like, and I can see them all playing their part in different ways.
You watch more football than me. as part of not only what you do for a living, but you'd also enjoy watching different leagues and different styles of football. So you've watched a lot more of Tierno Barry than I have. What can we expect from him? Is he raw or is he ready?
He's raw. For me, he's raw. I think he looked raw for Villarreal at times. He's very quick. Certainly over the first 5 yards, he's got a really good turn of pace. He's definitely a forward who enjoys playing in between the posts in terms of the ball comes into the area. He's invariably near the 6-yard box. You can expect him to get those tap-ins, which I think we've desperately missed at times. I don't think there's a great deal of difference between him and when we bought Moise Kean. I thought he was very similar and looked very similar at Juventus to what Tierno Barry has looked for Villarreal.
So we need
I think he's probably got
time and patience, basically.
I believe so. I think he's maybe got a little bit more athleticism, natural athleticism than Moise Kean, and maybe for that reason he might settle in a little bit quicker. But I think, like any forward who comes into the Premier League, it's about how quickly you hit the ground running, or you can hit the ground running. Moise Kean struggled to play games and get minutes, and he struggled to get goals early in his Everton career. And he's obviously gone back to Italy, and he's now, I think he was second leading goal scorer in Serie A last year. So I don't think Moise Kean was a poor player. It just didn't really work out for him initially. I think that's really important. If Moise is going to give him games and give him minutes, he could be a really good forward for us. But for me, from what I've seen of him last season, watching La Liga, he wouldn't be the player. If someone said to me, look, pick 5 players from La Liga as a forward you could bring in Everton, he'd probably into the top 5. So yeah, I think he's going to need time. I think he's very raw, but he's got loads of potential.
So players that we'll link with, I want to go through a few names with you. There's one player who doesn't seem to, the links don't seem to go away. Douglas Luiz from Juventus. Now he looks surplus to requirements, but with potential suitors, Juventus obviously looking to get the best deal that they can. And my personal opinion is I don't want Everton to get into a bidding war. I don't want us to just be the top bidder again, like we've done in 2017 with a number of players. We just bid way over what they were worth. But if Everton can do a deal for Douglas Luiz, is that someone you'd like to see play for Everton next season?
Absolutely. I mean, we're good mates with God, what's his name now from Villa.
Justin.
It was the Aston Villa podcast.
Justin.
What's his name again? Not watching, so it won't be too embarrassing for me. But Justin, that's the one. Yeah. Justin, I remember Justin being gutted when Douglas Luiz left. Yeah, I remember him being gutted when Douglas Luiz left, and he spoke incredibly highly of him. So I know he's a player who has a very good career at Aston Villa, assuming that he hasn't lost, the appetite and so on. But yeah, I would be excited by the prospect of Luiz coming in, and hopefully, as you say, we can get that done without getting into a messy bidding war, which it seems it has the prospect of being at the moment.
There's one player whose name popped up at the start of the window, and for me it seems a difficult deal to do. Ben Doak, the Liverpool winger who spent last season on loan at Middlesbrough. Firstly, do you see that as a deal that can be done? And secondly, if it can, does he bring something different to us?
Who knows, really? It was a strange one when it came up because, famously, you don't see many people crossing the park, so to speak, do you? Obviously, he was at Middlesbrough on loan last year, and he plays well there. He looks like an old school winger. He does look like someone who would fit the bill for a David Moyes team. David Moyes apparently seemed to rate Jesper Lindstrom for that reason, in terms of somebody who's got pace and can get to the byline and get crosses in. I'm not sure the rest of the Evertonians shared that love of Jesper, but Ben Doak is certainly someone who's similar to that. Will get you a hatful of assists. He's quick. He's young. Yeah, I mean, I would be up for that. But that rumor seemed to go quiet, and we haven't heard nothing since. So I'm not sure again if it's another one that will pop up later on in the window. But yeah, I'd definitely be partial to that signing there.
And some credible journalists have said that top of the wish list for David Moyes is James McAtee from Manchester City. Again, that seems like it would be a substantial cost. When I've seen him at City, he came in last season, he looked really good. He looked like a clever player who wants to move the ball quick forward. Is that something that, again, similar question, would you like to see James McAtee as part of Everton's team next season?
I mean, who wouldn't? He's outstanding. As you say, he got more games towards the end of the last season. It was surprising to me because he looked like a player that Guardiola certainly liked and fancied, but maybe it doesn't seem to be the case. Maybe he's fell into that kind of Cole Palmer category. So maybe he's someone who's asked to go out on loan or to go to get more game time. But nonetheless, he went to the Euros with the under-21s, and he was one of the standout players in that victory for England. And yeah, I mean, I think it would be an outstanding signing for Everton. But again, another player who certainly isn't short of other suitors, and a player I think that we may have to break the bank for. But if there's anyone who, if there is a player out of the list of players who've been linked with that I wouldn't mind seeing us, throw some good money at, it's him. Because I think he's someone who's still got a lot to prove despite being young. And he's someone who's shown in the 21s that, he can dig in and he can, he isn't afraid of rolling the sleeves up off the ball, which I think is something that Moyes, obviously values.
Yeah, look, I think the likes of him and Ben Doak tick a lot of boxes. I think if you ever can get those deals over the line and bring two young players in, you've already proven at certain levels that they can do bits on the pitch, and I think that improves us. And the last name, Judgy, I'm going to talk to you about because it's one that was heavily linked at the start of the window, and it did cause debate on social media. Would you like to see Jack Grealish as part of Everton's team next season?
Absolutely, no question whatsoever. I think I don't see what you've got to lose by bringing in a Jack Grealish. I really don't. He was and still is for me an outstanding talent. He would bring that, that adds a bit of quality to the table that I don't believe we've got in abundance. I mean, Iliman and Ndiaye and Jack Grealish linking up together. How can you not be excited by that? So yeah, I think I personally think I would love to see Jack Grealish in an Everton shirt. I think you're going into that new stadium, you're wanting to bring the X factor to things, and I think he's a player who could do that. It reminds me a little bit of the move David Moyes made for Jesse Lingard when he was at West Ham. He brought Jesse Lingard in, and it was probably the best season that Jesse Lingard ever had for in his whole career. And he was in a similar position at United to what Grealish is at City, really, where he a lot of people felt that he was underperforming. Maybe a lot of people thought he should have been getting game time. He went to West Ham as a brilliant loan spell there. Wasn't able to follow that up, ironically, but it was mainly because of the fact that he'd gone back to United and again found himself in a queue of players to get into that same position. So yeah, again, it might be a bit more divided than the McAtee one on the Everton front, but again, I think we'd be mad to not try and take that opportunity up if we did genuinely have the chance to sign him.
Out of all the names I've asked you about, if you had to put money on one of them to be an Everton player, who's the most likely, do you think? Should we talk Doak, Grealish, McAtee? Is the one there that you think that's the more realistic deal for Everton? I can see that one coming off.
You'd have to say Ben Doak, wouldn't you? There's obviously a lot of value in that deal for Liverpool from a PSR perspective, with him being classed as a homegrown player. It doesn't seem as though there's as many clubs going for Ben Doak, and if they are, they're probably not in the upper echelons of the league or in Europe. McAtee's been linked, I think, with Leverkusen, and they seem to be favourites to sign him. Grealish, obviously, the likes of West Ham, I think, a sniff, and I'm sure Newcastle would be interested as well. I'm sure there's still a possibility that he could stay at City. So I think the financial side of things in relation to McAtee and Grealish might tip the balance in the favour of other clubs. I think Benzo, being someone who's relatively local, I don't get the impression he's a die-hard Red and would turn his nose up at going to Everton, because I think he's more concerned about his career. And I think the type of player that he is, he seems like a good fit for David Moyes and for Everton as well.
So now is the time for me, Judgy, that Everton need to ramp it up a little bit. I think Everton should have ramped it up about 2 weeks ago, really, as soon as they came back into Finch Farm. Are you in agreement that Everton need to get busy now?
Yeah, without doubt. I still believe that we need 5 players, to be honest. I really do. I think we need a right back. Whether we continue with O'Brien there or whether it's Patterson coming in and out, I don't think either of them are perfect fits. Although O'Brien did a cracking job last season, I don't think either of them are ideal. And I think, as we've seen in the first few pre-season games, I think long term O'Brien's position will be centre back. So I think a right back is a priority. I still think a left back is it should be on the shopping list. Tagliafico was linked, and I thought that was close to being done. It would have made a little bit of sense. We definitely need another midfielder. I think we need a winger, and depending on how confident you feel that Tino Barry will start the season, maybe he's another forward. So there's still, for me, at least 5 players that need to come through the door. And for that reason, we are massively running out of time, and probably, as I imagine, running out of viable options.
Yeah, I think for me it's disappointing that we're going to America so short. I think that's the period of training where you're doing. I think when you go away at this stage of pre-season, that's where you're really preparing to how you're going to set up for the season, how you're going to attack different teams, and defend against different teams, and put your players in the right spots. And I'm really disappointed that we've not got the central midfielder and the right winger. I think they're the ones. And I think you're right. We need to pad out other areas. But yeah, I think I agree completely with you. I think it's Everton need to go and now be quite aggressive. If that kitty is there, then you don't want to be bent over a barrel and you don't want to get into bidding wars, but you need to identify your players now and you need to go and get them, because if we turn up at Leeds like this and we go into the last week of the window like this, I think it's dangerous. We can't afford to start the season slow. But it's been a good catch up with you, Judge. I've got one question for you. We didn't take any questions on socials, so I asked my little boy this morning, when I dropped him on his mum's, I said, I'm doing a podcast with Judgy. Have you got any questions? And he had a fantastic question. Like, I was so proud of him. So, Judgy, my little boy wants to know, if you could have scored any goal that Everton have ever scored, what goal would you want it to have been?
That is an unbelievable question, no? Does it have to be in my lifetime?
He didn't specify. I mean, I wouldn't like to take Dixie's 60th away from him, and I wouldn't like to take, Mike Trabelko and Derek Temple's goals in 66, but I think there's probably goals in Everton's history that have been wow. I wish I'd have put that. So go for it.
I'm gonna give you 3 then. In my lifetime, in this order, I would say you'd have to go with Paul Rideout at Wembley as being number 1, to score at Wembley for Everton to win us the FA Cup. And the other 2, just because of my the other 2 would have to be against Liverpool. I think Lee Carsley's at the Gladys Street when we beat them 1-0 would maybe be number 2, because it was such a big goal at the time for us. And then I'm going to go with Jags' goal at the Kop, the half volley that just screams in off the post. It was at the top of the post.
The bar, wasn't it? Yeah.
The bar, yeah. They would be my 3. Go on, you got to give us one then.
Look, I thought about it, and it's sort of sad as to where we are as a football club, but I just remember the euphoria when the 3rd goal winning against Palace, when Dominic Calvert-Lewin put that diving header in against Palace at the Gladys Street, and the stadium. I've never ever seen people with such relief, euphoria. I think I'd probably, if I was the owner of that goal, I'd be a very happy man. But yeah, thanks, Noel, for your question.
That's a brilliant question, And again, if you're watching this on social media, please put your answer, because it'd be dead interesting. I guess it's along the lines of what's your favourite goal, but I think putting yourself in that player's shoes of how they felt when you scored it is even more poignant, isn't it? Like, you might get people going, Rooney's, your first goal at Goodison against Arsenal.
Absolutely. Or Kevin Campbell's at the Kop on a Monday night.
Without doubt, yeah.
Yeah, put them in the comments. That's a great shout. Put them in the comments. And like I said, we've caught up briefly. We've just gone 27 minutes. You've seen the bells and whistles of coffin fits and kids taking our 5Gs off us. But we hope you've enjoyed the conversation. We do want to say a massive thank you. We are going to look a little bit different next season. So we want to say a massive, massive thank you to the Pod Cafe for everything they've done for us over the past couple of seasons. We're going to be recording in a different setting next season, but we know those guys will always be our friends and we'll be theirs. They've done a lot for us and we hope we've done a lot for them. So thank you. And for you guys, it's about to hit August, which means we're all busy with the kids, doesn't it? So let's all enjoy it. And the football is back. Everton have got competitive games this week, which I think starts with West Ham over in America, with Sky Sports are going to show. So me and Judgy are going to watch that. We're not going to be back now on a podcast, like I said, unless something really breaks. We're going to have a continue our break and let you guys have a break. There's plenty of other great Everton content out there for you to enjoy. But Judgy, before I let you go, what's your plans between now and Leeds? Are we getting away with the kids? Are we working? What's the sketch?
Yeah, I actually go away on Tuesday night. So I'm away for quite a while then. We try and spend our summers away because it's a bit cheaper to entertain the kids, as you're finding out this week with trying to get them in camps, etc.
Nightmare.
And yeah, obviously the weather's a little bit better. I'll still be having to do some work online, but yeah, be happy to get away and get some sun.
Happy days. And we hope you guys are going to get away and have some sun. We shall see you at Bramley-Moore. It's a new era starting, and don't forget, Goodison Park is still there. The season tickets for the Everton women are on sale at a fantastic price, which works out £4 a game. So me and Judgy are definitely going to make the most of having Goodison Park and the Hill Dickinson Stadium there. Enjoy the rest of your summer, guys. We shall see you at the start of the season. Thank you for watching. As always, up them toffees.